Dottillism practice on an orange. It's very important to practice on either pork skin or an orange so we can investigate the work after you've been practicing. And with each dot, can you just move your hand, Mike? Just draw a little square, and we're going to make sure we've completely covered that square with dots. And you need to practice that sort of thing often so that you can get a magnifying glass or your magnifying glasses and have a look at your work and make sure that each little dot overlaps the dot before. Now, you may think that your machine will do this for you if you're using an electronic machine, but it won't. It's up to you to use your, put your hand down, Mike, to use your little finger as your pivot point and to make sure that your wrist is going up and down, in and out of your practice piece, be it an orange or a piece of pork skin. So, okay, Mike, you ready? Yep. Making sure you keep the pen at 90 degrees to the skin and dotting in and out and just moving a tiny bit. And we'll come back when Margaret has completed that little square. So just to explain, if you have a look at these two sections, the section along here that I did, and this, oops, can you hold that please, Mike? And this section here that Margaret did, I noticed there's some bleed in the ink. And that can happen, move your hand please, Mike, you're shadowing that hand. That can happen if you go on an angle as you bring the needle out. And see how, if I can get in close, the dots are not joining. Whereas if you look at the one I did, even though I only did one pass, all the dots are joining. So when you do a dot, you must overlap your next dot. And it's very important to go straight in and straight out. So just try again, Mark, and we'll see if I can point something out. You're on an angle. You're on an angle. Stop, let me have a look. You're still causing bleed because you're going in sometimes straight but coming out crooked. So now do a line straight down this part and I'll check that. You're bending the needle. I can see what you're doing. Stop. Now that's better. What Margaret was actually doing was using so much pressure that the needle was bending slightly and that's what was causing bleed. It's very important to pivot off that little finger. And there's another error. She's actually moving her little finger off the orange. The little finger must be pushed down firm onto the client or your practice orange or your practice skin and used as a bounce. That is much better. See how the little finger stays firm on your practice piece and it will stay firm on your client, and your other fingers bounce in and out with the needle so you don't bend the needle. The needles are very, very fine, and if they're bending when they go in and out, then you'll have bleed of the pigment. Your little pigment cup should always be full. Yes, you're going to use a lot more pigment, but the thing is you're not going to wreck your machine. So now Mark's using a digital pen this time, which is a lot heavier to hold than a manual pen. Pivot off that little finger, very good. Excellent work. Can you see the difference?
Oh, yeah.
You see how well planted her little finger is? Firm, and that's how it'll be on your client. And then this part of the hand is jumping up and down and up and down. Now for practice, you actually need to fill in as much of that orange, so 5 to 10 minutes every day, practice on an orange. Practice this method on an orange and have a really good look at your orange. Stop a minute, Mark, and I'll show them the difference. A little bit of bleed, but not very much bleed at all, and a few dots not joined, but much better work than you did over here.
Mm-hmm. Lovely.
See, practice makes perfect. Practice on an orange every day until you are extremely confident at pointillism and dottillism. So joining your dots. In and out. Not jumping enough, Mark. That's better. Get a little bounce motion happening. And folks, that's how you practice pointillism and dottillism on an orange. Practice makes perfect. Sitting outside in the sun, and we're going to analyze these practice squares that Margaret's been doing. She's also done one in the shape of an eyebrow, and I'm now going to cut them and then come back. So I'll cut each one and show you each one. So okay, I've cut that first one out to show you, and I would consider that excellent work, except in this part here where she had some bleed, where she was bending a needle as she was coming out, you can see that she's gone right through to the dermal layer of the skin. And can you see the bleed that has happened there? Now that's from having your pen on an angle. This is why it's very, very important to forget everything you've learnt elsewhere. Pointillism is the best method, because pointillism, when done correctly, the dye doesn't bleed, the pigment doesn't bleed. But as soon as you get that pen on an angle, and if you go back and watch the previous video when I corrected Marg because she had her pen on an angle, this is what you can expect. Now that over the next few years is going to cause other issues, because that's going to bleed down into the dermal layer of the skin and could quite possibly give a slight green tinge to the top part of the tattoo. Okay, I'm going to cut the others and have a look at them. I'll be back in a minute. So now this is practice number 2, where the saturation was extremely good, and Margaret actually used the digital machine for this. You can see where she bent her needle a couple of times, which shows in the orange here. Then when we turn it over, her penetration is perfect, except for just a couple of spots, and you can see the pigment bleed because she actually either put her needle in or pulled it out on an angle. But predominantly, that's a very good practice session. Now we'll have a look at number 3.